Hi, this is our week 4 instructor highlights video. Before we get started with what we have coming up this week, kind of a look back on this last week. We've been talking about Franciscanism as a charism, how that might be expressed through servant leadership, and also looking at service learning as a way of learning, as well as getting our service learning projects in order for this semester. In regards to Franciscan charism, we finished up, you should have completed reading the St. Francis biography by Galli. The second part of that reading really focused on St. Francis's saintly life and his ministry, and looking at, and I hope that you could continue to see the Franciscan values of contemplation, integrity, hospitality, stewardship, and service through the telling of the story of his life. And then you should have also started your research and writing for our second deliberation paper, which is defining each of those Franciscan values that I just mentioned, using those stories from the life of St. Francis. And then also giving some practical examples from your own life on how you do live out those examples, or perhaps if you feel like you have some growth in those areas, how you could start to live those values out in your life in the future. Under the topic of servant leadership, we had a discussion board on the video that we had actually watched a couple weeks ago called "What is a Servant Leader?" I hope that the big takeaway that you got from that video was that we are all called to be servant leaders, first of all. And how we do that is by being servants first. So many times in past popular leadership models, we have this vision of a leader as someone who is strong and authoritative and telling people what to do, and is successful because he's able to manage all these people, and servant leadership is often called a soft form of leadership. It's the idea, instead of telling people what to do, that you serve as a model for the people who you are leading. And so it is through being a servant first that we teach others to be servants as well, and thus they then are empowered to become servant leaders. I think that key point is what drew me to servant leadership, or I should more accurately say, that's when I realized that what I do is servant leadership. I didn't have the jargon and the conceptual framework of servant leadership at the time that I was actually working in leadership roles, and knew that I didn't, when I go to like different leadership seminars and things, I appreciated what I was learning, and I certainly could apply some of those strategies, but it didn't always jive with me, and it was as I began to learn about servant leadership that I realized, oh, that's what I'm doing. And I'm sure many of you, after seeing that video, perhaps had that realization. And if you didn't, now you're aware, and it's a great time to try out the servant leadership hat and compare if you are in a leadership role, compare what I'm currently doing, and maybe if I use some of these other strategies as servant first and model and mentor, what sort of differing results do I get? And how can I incorporate servant leadership strategies and philosophy into my current leadership model, or just my way of managing people or supervising people? What can I incorporate that improves how I am as a leader and helps to improve them and empower them in what they are doing for the organization and the team. And we also focused on service learning quite a bit. We read Loeb and the Cynical Smirk, and that chapter took a continuing look at the cynicism that many people have that keeps them from getting involved, and is starting to give us some ideas on what we might do to curb those cynical tendencies that we may have about getting involved or feeling like we can make a difference. We also continue to work at identifying the community partners that we're going to actually be doing our service learning projects with. There's a whole bunch of paperwork that you should have completed by this point, with the exception of the proposal. That's not quite due yet. And then we also began the reflection process through the discussion board, where everybody shared where they were hoping to be doing their service, and maybe what some of your goals were in selecting that community partner. The reflection process is really a hallmark of service learning. It is one of the things that differentiates service learning from traditional learning styles, and I hope that you, now that we've got this energy going towards our service learning, that you don't lose that, because quite honestly, in the way this particular course is set up, there can be the tendency that you get like the ball going and everything's ready to go, and then you get really involved in some other classwork, in other classes perhaps, that seem more pressing, and then it comes to mid-semester in the beginning of the second session, and you realize you really haven't had a chance yet to go and do any service with your community partner. So don't try to keep the energy going. We have things are set up this way so that you can start your service now, even though as far as like class discussion and learning is not going to be specifically focused on your service learning projects at this time. We will be getting back to them in kind of like the online classroom format come second session. So you have to kind of keep that energy going independently, with doing your service work, reflecting upon it constantly. A good practice to get into is after you've done an instance of service, to maybe go to the coffee shop or the library, go somewhere where there aren't any kids or your spouse to be bothering you about something, and sit down and at least think about what you experienced and how it relates to what we are currently learning about in class. A lot of people find journaling to be very helpful with this, especially when it comes to this end of the semester for the final paper for the second session, where you're going to be writing a rather lengthy paper about this service learning project. And having a journal to look back at that chronicles not only what you did and experienced at serving your community partner, but how it was relating to what we were discussing, or what you were reading about in class at that time. You won't lose that when it comes time to write that paper. So you, I would highly recommend chronicling your service learning through some sort of journal writing, and it doesn't have to be fancy. Some people really enjoy journal writing, and they'll kick off a whole bunch of pages. Some people might, the whole bullet note, or bullet notes are what they're going to do, and just to be able to remind themselves what happened. And some people writing, honestly, some people don't, journals just don't work well for them. But you really, if you're one of those people, you really need to sit down in a quiet space and reflect on what you experienced and how it's relating to everything in class, so that you can bring that back up when you're writing your final paper. So that was basically last week. So going on forward to what we have to look forward to for week 4. The learning focus continues to be Franciscanism, specifically Franciscan values, the common good, and diversity. Readings we kind of take a step back on the reading this week. There's 2 chapters in Loeb. Chapter 5, which is titled Unforeseen Fruits. That really focuses on the idea of the common good, and that when we engage in service or advocacy work, that we may not immediately see the benefits of what we're doing. Sometimes it takes many drops in the bucket for the bucket to become full. And so even though you're doing something, let's say you're at your community partner, and you thought you were going to be working with some kids, and instead they have you clearing out files. And I've had this happen to students. And you're sitting there clearing out files, and you're thinking, what good, what good am I doing? That's something to contemplate, because in the big picture, you are doing some good. Perhaps a lost file will be discovered by clearing out your files, and someone's going to be getting help in the near future who had fallen through the cracks previously. It's that idea of things. Also, even something as simple as something you might say to someone while you're doing your service, and that could be to a person that you are directly serving, a client, or it could be to a community partner representative. It doesn't necessarily have to be someone that you're directly serving, but perhaps you'll say something which is off the cuff to you at the time, and it sparks something inside that other person that causes them to action, and then they go and do something significant. That, had you not said that small random thing, they would not have been prompted to do what they did. And so that's another example of that ripple effect, the common good, that we do things not for ourselves, or not even specifically for just a certain demographic of people or a certain population of people. That when we do service, that service ripples beyond that smaller community into the wider community, into the common good, and everyone ends up benefiting from the service that's being done. Loeb chapter 6 is entitled The Call of Stories, and it's very much about the importance of sharing personal stories and other people's stories as part of creating awareness, and for us to make those connections with what we're doing that will keep us there for the long haul. And this is a really important skill to learn. It's not something that comes naturally for everyone, but it's an important skill for us to learn as far as advocating for the common good, and for being able to engage in civil discourse and in our communities. And that's why we actually, if you look at the rubrics are specific about some learning outcomes that are about sharing experience. Relate this to experience, your personal experience, another's experience. And I really want to highlight that because in general, one of the critiques that I have of assignments so far is that if someone's going to miss something, it tends to, that's one of the things that people miss in their assignments, is relating that personal story to the topic. So for instance, in deliberation papers, that is one of the learning criteria in the deliberation papers, is that you relate the whatever the broader deliberation paper topic is to your experience. It's also included in several of the discussion board rubrics, whether it's your own personal experience or that you can relate the story of another. And so make sure, take a look again at those discussion board rubrics to make sure you're doing that as appropriate in order to get full points. And it's also very much about this reflective process that I was just talking about, as far as what makes service learning. It's not about all of this stuff up in my head and I've got all this knowledge. It's about how it affects my heart and how I'm going to be transformed so that I can share what I have learned up here with others in ways that they can understand, because everybody's different. And if we keep the knowledge up here, we've got lots of book knowledge, and we can spout out all of these facts and figures and sound, tremendously smart. But if we don't have that knowledge in our heart and we don't allow it to change who we are, we can't really use that knowledge to transfer it to the benefit of others, because everybody's experience is different, and everybody understands knowledge in different ways, and it's not always appropriate to be offering citations, being all scholarly and academic. You're not going to reach everyone that way. And so if you have this knowledge in your heart and you're able to relate it to your own experience, everybody can share stories. That's what we tend to do when we just hang out with each other, as we tell. Think about Christmas time. Every family's got a list of 5 stories that needs to be told. They're usually embarrassing about someone that gets told every year at Christmas, and everybody laughs about it. We share stories. That's what we do as a human people. So if you have this knowledge in your heart, you are able to relate this information to others via stories, whether they're your own or the telling of other people's stories, so that everybody can learn and benefit from what you're learning here right now. All right, that was a little bit of lecture thrown in there. Okay, so that's Loeb's reading for this week. Assignments. You all should have been starting work on deliberation paper 2 last week. So this week you will finish up writing, and don't forget to proofread. Now I will let you know that Writing errors do not count against points on this rubric for this assignment. However, as the person who is reading these papers, it is much easier for me to understand what you're trying to say if there aren't a lot of errors to have to decode through. So, a read through on your part after you're done writing would be most appreciated. The topic points for the deliberation paper, once again, are that you're being asked to define each one of the Franciscan values using stories from St. Francis's life to illustrate those values. And once again, those values, and these are our core values here at Viterbo University, are hospitality, integrity, contemplation, stewardship, and service. And then not only will you be telling the stories from St. Francis's life, but you will be telling stories from your own life, practical examples of how you live out these values. Or if you are feeling like you're not quite there yet and you could grow in that area, how you could envision living out these values in the future. So make sure you share your stories. It's all about the stories. 3 to 5 pages. I haven't. I'm almost done grading the first deliberation papers. So hopefully by the time you get this, you should have gotten your grades from the first deliberation paper. So far, I haven't seen anyone who has been under writing, has been under the page minimum. As a note, an instructor note, I don't take issue. I'm not going to dock you points for going over the paper maximum, the 5. But remember as well that I have to read everybody's papers, and so it's in everyone's best interest if you can hit all of the learning criteria that you're being asked to demonstrate in a succinct manner. That's really good for everybody. So 3 to 5, you should be right on. If you have to go over 5, it's not a big deal. Quite honestly, I tend to be verbose. Can you tell? When I write, I tend to go a little over the page maximum unless the instructor tells me I'll have my points docked, which there are some instructors that do that, but not this one. Just a few tips from what I'm seeing from the first deliberation papers that I've been grading. The first rubric grading criteria is that your paper have an introduction and a conclusion. So make sure that you have a well-formed introduction. In general, that it kind of like outlines to me as the reader what I can expect to read about in this paper. And then the conclusion, you succinctly wrap everything up, you connect everything together, state what the whole point of the paper was, and what your big learning takeaway maybe was from the paper. That's a good conclusion. And then the other thing that I wanted to emphasize and clarify is the use of outside resources in this paper is required. It's kind of a research-based paper. To get full points on this paper, the grading criteria states that if you use extensive outside resources, that you get full points. And I'm defining extensive as 3 or more outside resources. Some people have had no problem with this. But I have had some who have either provided no outside resources or just 1 to 2. And 1 to 2 outside resources I consider to be in that limited category. So make sure you're doing research during that first week. That's why you've got 2 weeks to write these papers. The first week to be research based, the second week to be writing based. Okay, so that's that. Oh, and that is due Sunday, February 7th. Loeb, Chapter 5 and 6 question and answer assignment will be due on Sunday, February 7th as well. Just a few notes in general from as I've been grading those. You're asked to pose a question and an answer to that question. So actually write a question, and that's separate from the answer. Some people have given me an essay where I actually have to search to find what the question is. So we want to see a very distinct, this is what the question is, and this is what the answer is. And one of the things that we're hoping that you're going to learn from this assignment is how to pose pertinent questions that prompt someone to think further, to promote further discussion of a topic. So refrain from a question that could simply be answered with a yes or a no. Or could be answered very briefly. You want questions that promote analysis and reflection, usually start with the words why or how. And then in that answer section, make sure you fully answer the question you posed. Some people have come up with some really great, complex, multifaceted questions, and then in their answer they don't answer all of the facets of the question. So make sure if you do, that your answer lines up with your question well. And then for this one, proofread. Make sure you proofread, because on this assignment you do lose points for writing errors. And some people, I have to say, so far this class is doing really good compared to previous classes that I've had with this particular assignment. I think sometimes because it's short that people quick write it up on Sunday, the day it's due, and don't have time to really proofread it, and you just quick write it and send it out. And so that's where all these writing errors come from. And this group seems to at least be proofreading it. Some people, though, do have writing errors. So if the reason for that is that you are doing I got to quick type this up and get it out before it's past due, to take 5 minutes to read it over, because it's so sad to have to take points off for some simple writing errors. Or if the problem is that writing is just not one of your gifts or skills or something you're really comfortable with, which is, there are a lot of people who have troubles with writing. That's, nothing to be ashamed about. That's why we have the Academic Resource Center here, or that Smart Thinking online tutorial service that's free of charge for you. So please utilize those resources if writing is just not your strong point, and if you feel like, if I proofread this, really I don't even know what to change, because it's not one of my deals. Use the ARC. That's what it's there for. All right, so that's that assignment. With the service learning, there's one piece of paperwork that's still due. It is the service learning project proposal. It's due on Saturday, February 6th. And this is like the contract between you and your community partner and me. There is on Moodle, there is a link to a Word document. That's the form that you can print off, or you can alter, with your word processor. You're asked to add some goals, to express what your goals are for the service learning project, along with just some, basic detail information. And then you need to sign it. Someone, a representative from the community partner, needs to sign it, and then you'll submit it via Moodle. to me, and then I will also sign it as well. So it's just to make sure everybody's on the same page. And some people have asked me, they're like, I don't have a scanner, what do I do? If you're close to La Crosse, they can help you with that at the library. If you aren't close to La Crosse and coming to the library isn't really feasible, I believe you can take a cell phone picture of it, and that will upload on Moodle. Because I know I have had students do that before. Moodle is constantly being updated and changed though, so sometimes things used to work and they don't work anymore. So if you have any problems with submitting that, like you're one of those people using your cell phone to take a picture, let me know and we'll figure it out. There's 2 discussion boards this week. The first one is a general discussion board on a negative situation. And what we're looking is for you to tell the story about some bad news that you've heard about, or maybe you've been a part, of one of the players in the story. That bad news or bad negative situation, or whatever you want to call it, came up for you while you did some of the reading. Since the beginning of the class. Something you read, tripped that, and you're like, oh, that made me think of this situation. Write about that. And explain how class brought up that news story or memory or whatever it is. For this assignment, you're to use the online discussion board participation rubric that's in the Adult Learner's Guide. And from that, make sure when you are posting that if someone comments on your initial post, so your initial response to the discussion board question, if someone responds to that, make sure you respond back. We're trying to make online discussion boards as close to a real life discussion participation experience as possible. And quite frankly, it's impossible. But one of the reasons why I ask for that is that if we relate it to a live situation, it'd be like you saying something in class, contributing something to discussion, and the person who's sitting next to you, they were like, oh, that's right, thanks for bringing that up, I remember this, and they respond to you, and you don't even acknowledge that they said anything. So it doesn't have to be anything extensive. It can be brief, to acknowledge that they had a thought about what you had to say, but please respond and be attentive. It's demonstrating to me as well that you're actually not just I did my posting, and then you don't go back to the discussion board anymore. The idea is that we want you to keep reading the class discussion, as many of the posts as you possibly can, so that you get all of the wealth of information and learning that we all contain, because that's why this is a discussion-based class. That's the whole point of a seminar, is that there's more learning than just what's in the books. Okay, so that's that one. And then, and then also make sure you ask a pertinent question during the course of that discussion. And a pertinent question is not a rhetorical question. A rhetorical question is one that you say to make a point, or you're asking the question, you're really not expecting someone to respond to you. A pertinent question is maybe asking for a fellow student to clarify something they said because you didn't quite get it. Maybe what they said brought up a question in you, so you state that, and in order to, hopefully if they're doing what they're supposed to, they'll respond to you, and you guys will have a conversation about that. Because that sometimes people are missing that pertinent question they're posting. The second discussion board is on the topic of immigration. Use the current event online discussion rubric for this discussion board. I'm looking for you to demonstrate that you understand a specific aspect of the situation. And this is something from our first current events discussion board. Some of you did a great job of this. You found one aspect of the Syrian crisis, and you did your research on that, and you focused your opinions on it and your discussion on it. Some others, though, tried to just the entire complexity of the Syrian crisis. They tried to convey, and that's really hard to do. I mean, because we all aren't experts at everything. So be focused and thorough with what you share in regards to immigration. I'm not looking for you to share everything that possibly could be discussed about immigration currently. Make sure you demonstrate how the topic of immigration relates to what we're currently studying. So Franciscan values, the concept of the common good, could even talk about how it relates to ethics and or diversity if you're reading ahead some. But I'm looking for some specific relation to what we're currently reading and studying about. Make sure you express your opinion of the topic. That was another thing that sometimes people did a great job of doing their research and giving us, a synopsis of a aspect of the situation, but you really didn't tell us what your opinion was, what you thought should happen. So that's the whole point of doing this research is to develop opinions and to clarify our own thinking. So express that, and then make sure you support your opinion. If you have an opinion, that you support it with those cited outside materials. And we're looking for in-text citations. Those are the ones with the parentheticals, and then also do a little at the bottom works cited. With the bibliography style citation at the end of the post. And then, once again, telling stories, relate the topic to your own personal experience or share the story of someone else as it relates to the topic. And then just lastly, in general, on all the discussion boards, I've been really pleased, first of all, with how the discussion boards have been going. People seem really engaged, and I'm enjoying reading them. There still seems to be, I still feel like I need to clarify more the posting requirements. And it's not a problem for everybody, but I'm wondering why some people are not posting more frequently than they are. So to clarify for everyone, in case you also have this question, first of all, this is a seminar. A seminar is a discussion-based course, and that means that a good percentage of the points for this class are from discussion, and so participation and active engaged participation in the discussion boards is really necessary in order to do well in this class. The minimum requirements for posting for the class are twice, that you have that initial post that is your answer to the discussion question. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry about that. I didn't realize I had that finger up. Anyway, The minimum is the first time, the initial. It goes to 250 words is the word count minimum. And then the second posting is 150 words, and that second posting is a response to another student's post. That is the bare minimum. If you do that, you're going to get no better grade than a C, because I consider that average posting. If you post, so for instance, if you post twice, so you do that minimum posting, and let's say you post late, or you didn't meet the word count minimum, or you don't follow the rubrics, you don't meet all of the learning criteria, the grading criteria. If you've only posted twice, you're going to receive a D or an F. Because so even though you met the minimum posting, you didn't really engage. I mean, you were like average with how your frequency, and then it was, and that wasn't even very good. So you're going to get less than average, below average. Let's say you post once, and it's a super posting. It's like huge, way beyond the word count minimum. It's awesome. You've met all of the grading criteria on the rubric, but you only post that one initial, your answer. That's not really discussion. That's like an essay. And this is a seminar, and it's a discussion board. So even if you've done, this super uber one post, you're still going to get a below average grade, a D or an F. So just pay attention to that. There's not many people who are doing that, but I know that there are some people who are very minimalistic in their posting, and I just want to encourage you from here on out to get engaged in the discussion, because that's really where the learning is happening. It's where, like I said before, the learning isn't just in the books. It's in each one of you. So I think that's it. I think I've talked long enough. So hope you have a great week. You know how to get in touch with me if you need to. And here's to Franciscan values and service learning.